everybody, and welcome to Polly's Australian Gin Tasting. My name's Dave, and we'll be tasting some amazing Australian gins. First off, a note on how to taste spirits. I know, doesn't seem like a complicated process. It goes in, and there you go. But if we raise our glasses, give her a swirl, you'll see the alcohol actually climbing the glass. That's what we call the legs. Now, nose the spirit, but you don't dive all the way in. We're not scuba diving. Just gently raise the nose, in through the nose with the mouth open, out through the mouth. Then take a swig. Try and roll it around. It won't be easy because you're getting that ethanol burn off raw spirit. But you should taste some hints of what's to come. The real trick when it comes to spirit tasting is a drop of water and then give that a swirl. In this case, with most spirits, you will see what they call a slight louche, a slight cloudiness, oiliness come over. Now, repeat the process. You should get a lot more flavour, a lot more aroma. The real trick though is when you take a good swig of it. It's comfortable to hold in the mouth, to chew like a bowl of cereal, and that's really what you're looking for. That allows your taste buds, which go from top of your sinuses down to your small intestine, to actually absorb as much flavour as possible. You can do the Hannibal Lecter thing as well. Now the important thing, it's lovely. The important thing with when you're tasting spirit is don't worry about the tasting notes on the back of the bottle. We'll be going through that. We'll be going through what you taste. But what memories and sensations does it bring up in you? You're your own best guest. And your interpretation of taste, just like flavour, smell, sound, and the associations that throws up within you is completely personal. So as we're going along, feel free to talk to your other friends as we're doing the tasting about what it brings up for you. Not just in terms of taste, but associations. Feel free to give it a go. The first gin we're going to be trying today is one of Melbourne's first craft gins, Melbourne Gin Company, MMGC. Launched in 2013, brainchild of 2012 from a winemaker family. This is almost entirely out of his 11 botanicals, pure Australian gin. Botanicals are the main thing when it comes to gin. It's where the flavour comes from, because the spirit is normally what they call neutral grain. Now, neutral grain is a blanket term for raw alcohol. What they would do is normally soak the botanicals, herbs, nuts, tree bark, flowers, citrus peel, seeds, in separate distillates, and then they will blend them together to create consistency in the bottle. MGC was one of the first to use almost entirely Australian botanicals and push the boundaries on what gin could be. If you have a nose, a swig, and then repeat what we did in the intro, and let those oils out, you'll see what I mean. Because juniper is a given when it comes to gin, and this being made in what's classically known as a London dry style, juniper is quite forward, as well as citrus elements, though in this case they are native grapefruit and navel oranges. So all of that is apparent on the nose, but there's some herbal things in there, and that's where this gin gets really clever. Rosemary, really pungent, especially oily, herbal kind of flavours, almost perfumey, backed up by sandalwood, again locally grown. So that creates a nose that's quite different to your normal juniper and lemon kind of London dry style gin. And then we get really Australian. They get macadamia in there, buttery, nutty kind of flavours. Now when you take a swig, on the mouthfeel you'll know where I'm coming from. really swill this one right up. Salted butter just coming off the front palate right down the back. It's extraordinary. That links up with what they call binding botanicals. Now they're the background, like the scenery of the play. In this case, they're the imported ones. Orris, Angelica, both roots, almost sarsaparilla-y, but you can't really detect them at the front. They provide a herbal background. But cassia bark, with its cinnamon-like qualities, that actually combines really well with the nuttiness of the macadamia and pushes it forward. As well as the local citrus, that combines just almost on its own with a dash of water, a souffle of a gin. But when you combine with tonic, especially a light, very low sugar tonic, this brings the citrus boiling out, and those nutty herbal notes are more from mouthfeel. But you be your own best guest. The second one we'll be trying is Mother's Milk, 2019 addition to Australian gins. It's got a heartwarming story behind it. The creators, Glenn and Serena, wanted to make gins that reflected the characteristics of their mothers, who are now no longer with us. The first one, Marie, is based around a classic dry London gin, but with a high amount of juniper, lemon, and fresh ginger, reflecting that spicy, hot-blooded kind of person they were. On the first nosing, you will get this right up the sinuses. It's powerful. Ginger has been used in many gins as a kind of background material, but here they've really thrown it forward to really spice up the neutral grain alcohol. You'll definitely get that. The funny thing about it though is it's kind of soft on the tongue. It's really smooth. That's what they're going for. You can drink it on its own with a martini. In a G&T it does very well, especially with light tonics, like lower sugar tonics. It really sings with that. And then, just if we were going to have it in a martini, I think maybe a nice twist of pink grapefruit, or as a savoury martini with pickled onions, classic Gibson. Some nice dry French vermouth to make it sing. The acid from that will pick up in the ginger and you'd be away. You're your own best guest. Give it a lash. Third one we're going to try is hemp gin from the Natural Distilling Company. Now it may seem like a gimmick, but once you taste it, I guarantee you'll see where they're coming from. The terpene, the natural chemical in all plants, in this case is limonene, which gives it a natural citrus quality. Yes, it's rich in protein, yes, it's actually high in antioxidants and many other beneficial herbs. When we make it into a gin, maybe that's the payoff, but once you add a drop of water into this and taste those lovely herbal notes, which normally they have to pile botanicals into, you'll find this actually quite a stripped back, new age dry gin. Lemon oil coming off there with a delicate, almost minty kind of flavour of that. Spearmint, definitely. And then almost like a fresh cut grass smell comes back up through the back of your mouth and then in through the nose again. If you actually breathe in at this point, it's extremely refreshing. This is not only maybe a milestone in getting hemp recognised as an ingredient as opposed to an agricultural product or something that can be used in anything from housing to how to make rope or anything like that, but how we can harness the flavours of this particular botanical when you match it with the right amount of cassia bark, orris root, angelica, veronica, all those background scenery herbal notes, bring it forward without shoving it in your face, and then you combine that with the light orange and grapefruit and lemon. It's just sensational. It goes quite an attractive aquamarine colour. Always good for a gin and tonic. Actually, you might want to try this with a slice of lemon, or even better, maybe a thick wedge of ruby grapefruit for a G&T. Oh yeah, delicious. The fourth one we're going to try is something entirely unique to Australia. This is Brookie's Sloe Gin. Now, Sloe Gin is an English variant on traditional London dry style, using the berries, technically they're seeds, of the wild blackthorn tree. But in Australia, they came up with something entirely unique. This is gin that's been reduced in alcohol by volume and then infused with the flavour of Davidson plums. Now, the Brooks family, 25 years ago, they started rejuvenating the rainforest around the Byron Bay estates, and with that came the opportunity to replant indigenous fruits and trees there. And this, once you taste it, let's just do it, shall we? Give it a swirl, give it a taste. It's only 26.5%, so even when we add the water, but just bittersweet jam. Oh, you could have that on toast in the morning. I mean, not entirely necessary. If you're enjoying it, enjoy it how you like. It works really well with things like bitter lemon or even lemon squash, it doesn't matter. But just to open it up a little bit, you need the tiniest drop of water. And you'll see almost grains of fruit rise to the surface. It's just lush. And now you get further into it, and that bitter sweetness, now you feel the juniper coming through and that lemon. I mean, you can imagine having that in the morning, maybe with a bit of brown bread toast and a bit of lemon curd on there. Just a great way to start the day. I mean, who needs Weet-Bix? Gorgeous stuff, and a unique and worthwhile product worth following and supporting for all they're doing for the environment here in this country. Now we come to the last one we're going to try, the Four Pillars Shiraz Jim, or Bloody Shiraz Jim. Sorry, my Australian accent's terrible. But Four Pillars was one of the first major craft distillery triumphs in Australia. It really highlighted the need for locally sourced, locally produced products of which we can be proud of internationally. In this case, they really pushed the boat out, because what else is great about Australian produce when it comes to alcohol? Wine will be the first thing off anybody's lips. So they went around all of Victoria. Most of the fruit that's been destemmed and just steeped in the Navy strength gin for 8 weeks is from the Yarra Valley. And I think the results speak for themselves when you taste it. So while they've steeped it in grapes, it's still got the flavour of gin. You'll see when you taste it. You see there's a bit more coming off the nose. It's actually quite acerbic, but there's still a bit of that red wine juniper especially, tannin coming through. But it's soft and raisiny. It's almost like Pedro Jimenez sherry, you know. It's sweet at the start, but only at the start, and then it dries beautifully. But when you add the water, this is gorgeous in a martini. You could do a ruby grapefruit twist, but I would definitely recommend it with some frozen red grapes. And the oil is just... oh. You can have the best of both worlds, because while you've still got that heat and richness of spirit, you've still got that lovely dry fruitiness of good red wine. It's like sherry without the grandmas. It really is. It's just gorgeous. And then you get that lovely mandarin, tangerine kind of flavour. Just pops out, it nearly bursts out your mouth. and then it dries to the more perfumed. A little bit of coriander, but not soapy, and then pine resin kind of flavour. Oh, it smells like Christmas trees. And finally a nice bit of cinnamon earthiness coming down through, and then the dry tannins to finish it off. It's just, that is an after dinner drink on its own. If you wanted to make cocktails or G&Ts with it, I'd probably steer away from, for your first go, I'd probably steer away from dry ginger and maybe go straight to bitter lemon or a really earthy tonic. I'd just have it on my own. Enjoy.